Hello, this is Craig Mertens from Digital Art Solutions, president of Art Solutions. We also have David Gross from Conde on the line here. We're doing a little webcast for you guys today. The scope and topic of the webcast today is CorelDRAW. Why CorelDRAW? Why would you select CorelDRAW as your primary graphics program? And what are some of the functionalities of the CorelDRAW program that make it specifically appropriate for doing that? And how does it compare to other programs? So that's really what we're going to talk about today. What you see on your screen right now is you're seeing CorelDRAW 2017, which is the most current version of CorelDRAW. Actually, that version is CorelDRAW 19. If you look at the version number of CorelDRAW 2017, that's version 19, which is pretty remarkable. So CorelDRAW has been going around for a long, long time. And when I first got involved in graphics, we had a screen printing business called Desert Sportswear, and my parents owned, and we had about 21 full-time production designers. And amongst that group, everyone was using Adobe Illustrator. Adobe Illustrator is a very popular program in our industry. Adobe Corporation's been around a long time. They didn't always own the Illustrator product. They actually purchased that product from another company, but it's branded under the Adobe brand now for probably close to, at least since 1988, I believe, is when that occurred. So we had a humongous giant art department, and primarily what we were doing is we were going in and taking templates like this design you see on the screen, and we were coming out with new designs every year. And then what we were doing is we were modifying these designs for various retail entities and collegiate enterprises. So for instance, we did business with college bookstores all over the United States. So we'd have to take a design that was set up for University of Alabama and change it to Auburn. How crazy is that? So we'd have to change the colors, change the mascots. We'd had to get it all ready for color separations, for screen printing. And we had this massive group of people that was doing all this artwork. So when I first decided that I wanted to learn how to do graphics, I went and bought a copy of Adobe Illustrator. And I was like, wow, this is pretty complicated. I thought it was going to be a lot easier than this. And I had to kind of, with my own level of self-taught experience, I had to learn this program on my own. It's a very daunting problem to learn. Any graphics product on your own can be pretty challenging. And so I started using Adobe Illustrator in 1988. In 1990, I'm trying to think, it was 1996 was the first time I ever used CorelDRAW. It was CorelDRAW 6. And we purchased a copy of that program for our art department because we knew a lot of clients were using CorelDRAW, so I wanted to find out more about it. And all of a sudden, it was like, wow, I can actually do graphics now. This is a lot easier. It's a lot more intuitive. And so I just kind of, at that point, I kind of fell in love with CorelDRAW. Why CorelDRAW? Why do I like CorelDRAW? For a couple of reasons. Number one, the Corel Corporation considers CorelDRAW to be a platform. What does a platform mean? A platform means that it's for imprinting. It can be used for sublimation printing, for screen printing, if you have a white toner based printer like an Okidata printer, if you have a direct garment printer, laser engraving, all wide format digital printing, big format sublimation printing, or small format. It has all of the functionality for doing all that. And Corel really focuses on the imprinting processes, where the Adobe products focus on general graphics. So for instance, if someone goes to graphic design school, they're going to learn Adobe Illustrator and Photoshop. That's going to be two core programs that they learn, because Madison Avenue ad agencies, that's what they're using. People that are designing screens for cell phone apps, that's what they're using. That's the standard program. It's not a better or worse thing. It's just the traditions of the graphics education people. So here's a classic deal, and David, you can back me on this. So you just get into the imprinting business, you buy a sublimation system, and you talk to your buddy, and they're a graphic designer, and they say, oh, you got to have Photoshop. Well, why? Well, that's what everybody uses. So you go out and buy Photoshop, right? And you start trying to learn it, and you're like, wow, this is not the easiest thing in the world I've ever learned. And so that person's a classically trained graphic designer. They've gone to school for this. They did an internship. And it's frankly, it's not realistic for somebody that's a non-graphic designer just to pick up the Adobe products and be able to be instantly productive. There's a learning curve. There's a process they have to go through. On the other hand, typically when people start with CorelDRAW, they pick things up a lot faster because the user interface is a lot more intuitive. So I just kind of wanted to talk about that for a second. The other direction that people go when they go with graphic software is they will go with the A program that came with their system. So that might be if you have a Cameo vinyl cutter, that might be the Silhouette Designer software. Maybe if you have a sublimation system and it's using Sawgrass inks, you might be using the online sublimation software. David, do you want to talk about the online software from Sawgrass real quick and kind of what that is and the scope of it?
Yeah, it's called Creative Studio, and it's bundled with the printer free. It is very different from traditional software in that it's a cloud-based designer, so you don't download and install it. You just log into your browser like through Chrome, and you're able to get Corel-like features. We'll call it a very light version of Corel. It does have a clip art library. And for a lot of people that are, trying to make money day one and don't own any software and don't know how to use any software, I think it's a good solution to get started. But what happens is you will quickly, or you should quickly outgrow it, and then you graduate to Corel. So the things that Creative Studio does is you can't save your files to your computer. They're always saved in the cloud. You can't use your graphics for another printer. It's only for use with your Sawgrass Virtuoso. So I think it has some very much has a sweet spot with someone that's just getting started, and so that'd be your day job. And as you get into it, you progress. I would recommend, as appropriate, graduate to Corel. So it definitely is a cool concept, but it is a concept that, with just a little bit of effort, you may be in a position where you've outgrown it.
Yeah, I think that's very well put, David. And the other program that people will utilize, especially on more on the craft and hobby side of things, is the Cameo software the Silhouette software that comes with the cameos, and that's what I would classify as a very primitive, defeatured version. It's not a version of CorelDRAW, but it's modeled after the Corel features. A lot of the same functionality, and you can do really simple, basic type designs. It's when you start getting into complicated things. That's why I wanted to show you this Vicksburg graphic right here. So what I wanted to talk about with this Vicksburg graphic is when you're going into more complex things, you need a greater variety of tools in order to do that. And I'm going to break this Vicksburg graphic apart, and I'm going to show you how this was constructed and why you need a professional graphics program to do something like this. And one of the things I always like to tell clients, if you want to have a professional business, guess what you have to have? You have to have professional tools. And professional tools is also going to include professional graphics programs. So let's take a look at this design. And this is a pretty typical thing that you would see in terms of how a graphic would be constructed in CorelDRAW. This was a graphic that was constructed by our art department. It's part of a series of graphics that's in our campus apparel marketing system. And a very, very accomplished graphic designer created every single part of this. They created the laurel leaf, they created the little atom sign here. These are all Digital Art Solutions fonts, so we created all these fonts, and then we built a design element, laid the text out, and created what we call a production-ready file. So one of the first things that you would do in a graphics program is you would go into what's called wireframe view. In Illustrator, that would be called outline view. And I go into wireframe view, you can actually see how this file was constructed. And so you can see there's a stock graphical element here, right there, and that's all grouped together. You have a line of text here with an outline on it. You have a line of text here. You have right here, you have a multi-layer text effect. And what's creating that set of outlines there is actually having that same word club multiplied on top of itself 3 times with different outline widths. You also have these graphical elements in here. So you have the outside boundary of the laurels, and then you also have the little atom clip art here as well. And so an artist had to go in and create this. Now, one of the things that's going on with this design, I'll show you here real quick, is that text effect. You guys see that? So there's your text effect. The way our art department set this file up is they set it up with something called enveloping. This is a very key function for doing templates and graphics in any graphics program. This is not a function that you're going to see typically in consumer level programs. And what an envelope is this. It's a container that encompasses the boundaries of the text. So if I want to come over here and I'll just hit Control Shift T and I want to type in MISSISSIPPI in there, guess what? See how it's constraining that within the template? If that did not have a envelope around it, we'll take the envelope off. I'm going to clear the transformation. See how it's going to go outside the boundary of that area. So enveloping is one of the things that makes templating possible. This is a graphic that is vector based. And what that means is because it's vector based, it's very easy for me to come in here and say change font. It is easy for me to come in here and change a color. I can do some pretty crazy stuff with this because what I could do is I could take that template and use my shape tool to change the kerning between the designs. The other thing I could do, because this is vector-based artwork, which is pretty wild, is I could do what's called a power clip. This is something that is a unique feature to CorelDRAW. In Illustrator, you have something similar, but it's not quite the same thing. That similar thing that you see in Illustrator is called masking. Corel, it works completely different. What I'm going to do right now, I'm going to draw a rectangle. I'm going to grab my dropper tool, and I'm going to click on my dropper tool, and I'm going to sample the white in the world in this part of the graphic right here. We're going to sample that, and I'm going to use my bucket to make that solid white. So I put it on that boundary right there so you could see that it's solid white. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select that rectangle. I'm going to right click on my color palette here to turn the outline off, and I just have a little block of white. Watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this over here, and I'm going to drop it on Mississippi. I'm going to say power clip inside, and I power clip that inside. So I made that a two-tone. That's a Corel feature. That's a really important feature when you're doing sublimation and digital printing because we can utilize that to power clip photos into shapes or photos into text as well. So it's a very important feature. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the internals of CorelDRAW that are very, very important. One of them, the first thing we're going to talk about is professional color management. So when we're printing sublimation or any form of digital printing, whether that's like an Oki Data white toner printing or a DTG print or a poster printer like a solvent-based printer, the colors that we see on screen are not going to be the colors that are going to print. And so we have to be able to manage our colors so we can hit the colors that are actually, what the customer is ordering. Because what we see on screen is going to be anything like what happens after we print this onto sublimation paper and actually heat press this at what, 390? I mean, this is going to change all the colors on this. So what Corel has a professional color management engine. And if I come over here and I go to color management, and I go to document settings right here, these are all settings that are going to dramatically impact the way the colors are output to the paper and ultimately to the transfer for doing sublimation. And we can go in here and add all kinds of different settings and make adjustments. I think David, normally under rendering intent, usually change that to perceptual,
We
and under
do.
and primary color mode, typically RGB. Is that correct?
Correct.
Right. So these are settings right here. They're going to have a huge impact on how this is printed. And one of the things on RGB has a much wider gamut of colors that can be produced versus CMYK. Not every graphics program has RGB, an RGB color model in it. And so as a result of that, the scope of the colors that can be produced can be somewhat limited. So Corel has a professional color management system. And one of the other things you can do in CorelDRAW is, if we come over here to color management again, is we can set up default settings for new documents, and we can embed color profiles. A color profile will change the visual appearance of the graphic for your monitor, for your printer, for your scanner. When you look at, big giant companies that print billboards, they might have a billboard that they're printing it could be, easily $5,000 worth of printing. I want to kind of make sure that they get the colors right. And so they use color profiles in order to do that. David, now, do you typically use profiles or you set that up through the Windows Print Manager? How do you guys normally handle that?
So we absolutely use profiles. So what you're in is you're in the working space. You're in the the operating part of Corel, and then as you print, you'll go to the if you go print preview, which is what I prefer, you're going to go to the color tab, and you're going to see settings, general.
Okay, where's the color tab? Where are we headed
We need
to?
to go up to settings,
Oh, okay.
general. That
Ah,
puts you in all the tabs here.
okay.
And really, the first tab, you can ultimately, when we're finished, go down and create a print style. But the color tab is where we're talking about. And right there, if we were printing to a real printer, we would have color conversion performed by Corel, which is correct, RGB. And then correct colors using would be the output profile for the printer. And so that's where you would select the printer profile. You don't have many printer profiles in there. And then below that would be the rendering intent and relative color metric. And what you're doing when you print that way is you're closely integrating all of Corel's color management with the color management of the printer. And so absolutely the right way to do it.
And that having that professional color modeling is what's going to enable us to get colors exactly the way we want them. You would also see that same kind of a color management system in Adobe Illustrator or even Photoshop. So having professional color management is one of the most important reasons why people are going to utilize a professional program like CorelDRAW. To the credit of Corel Corporation, they really do a tremendous job on that particular part. Now, one of the other things that I want to talk about in terms of some of the things that make Corel a professional graphics program are color separations. Now, we're looking at this graphic right here. This graphic is color separated. So what does that mean? This means that if I send this graphic off to a screen printer, they will be able to produce film positives from that. If I send this off to a company to have a transfer made, they can produce the transfer and film positives for their transfer. So what does that mean? So this is how screen printed transfers are made, and this is how screen printed apparel is made. What happens is you have a screen, and on that screen, it's covered in a photosensitive material called emulsion. And what we do is we print out a solid black image for every color in the design, and that solid black image is printed onto a film or a vellum material, and it's put on the screen. That screen is usually taped to the screen. Now what happens is we expose that screen to ultraviolet light, UV light. It dries and hardens all the parts that are not covered in black. Any area that was covered in black will not harden. Emulsion is water soluble. Hit it with high pressure water, it just knocks all the uncured emulsion out, and that's your screen. That's what you're pushing your ink through. So when CorelDRAW allows us to do color separations, this file is created using Pantone colors. If I come over here and I'm just in our Smart Designer software, I can take a look at the colors in the design. You can see we have Pantone colors. If we didn't have Pantone colors, I could just click on to Pantone and we could update that color palette. This is color separated now. I can go and print separation. So let's do that. Let's go to File. Let's go to Print. I'm going to click on, instead of printing a composite image, I'm going to go to Color, and I'm going to pick my printer driver that we use here at the office. And I'm going to click on Color, Print Separations. And you can see there's a solid black print for every color in the design. That's your color separations. Consumer level programs don't have the ability to do color separations. So when you send those files off to your vendor, if it's not vector artwork, it's going to have to be regenerated as vector artwork. Number two is it's not separated. So they'd have to go and recolor the image and color separate it. A program like the Cameo Designer, we don't even have the ability to export a file as this color separation, where Cameo was never designed to take the files back out. It was designed to bring the files in and cut to your Cameo cutter, but it wasn't designed as a graphics program to take out to other processes. It's a closed system. CorelDRAW is an open system, and so I can use it for every production process under the sun. If I want a pad print on a walnut with the pad printer, I can do that using CorelDRAW. So having the ability to do color separations is actually a really, really important thing. So we talked about a little bit about text enveloping, which is important. We talked about the ability to do color management, and we talked about color separations. We talked about power clipping. And some of the other things that we're going to talk about is import and export capabilities. That is a huge, big deal. And CorelDRAW is the world's greatest jackknife for dealing with file formats. It can open just about any file format that's a popular graphics format, and it can also save files into just about any graphics format. And hey, David, as far as importing and exporting files, why do you feel that's important?
So, first of all, I can't restate any more stronger than what you just said. Corel is absolutely amazing. It can open an AutoCAD file. And what do they call it? I'm trying to think the format for AutoCAD. But at any rate,
DXF.
yeah. So it just does amazing. I think the challenge for Corel is that you need to keep your version updated. You need to keep your service packs installed because you'll get a lot of Adobe Illustrator files, and in order to open them properly, you need to be up to date. So I would say that the best interchange format often is going to be a PDF between
Agreed.
Illustrator, things like that. But it is beyond a peer as far as being able to open various and sundry formats.
Yeah, I mean, and we're talking about bitmap-based formats like PNG files or BMP or JPEG files, or even a native Photoshop PSD file, TIFF files, all your bitmap formats, your popular vector formats that people are using. Actually, PNG can be used as a vector format as well. EPS files, PDF files, Adobe Illustrator native files. What David was talking about on keeping your Corel up to date. If you think about it like this, if Adobe comes out with a new version, which they do occasionally in their cloud-based software, they update the file format. So that means that Corel Corporation has to update their import filters so they can open that file. They're not going to do that on the older version. So a lot of times if you have an older version of Corel and you try to open up a new version of an AI file, you get an error message. You're not going to typically see that on the latest version of CorelDRAW because they've updated those filters. The other thing that David was mentioning was the PDF file format. The PDF file format is brilliant for taking files between programs. And specifically, if you're dealing with Adobe files or Photoshop files, using the PDF export from Adobe products and using the PDF import for CorelDRAW files is really the way to go. And it was funny, I don't know if I still have this file, but see if I can find it. It's in my trash bin. I threw it away off my desktop yesterday. But I had gone in and pulled up the Tesla logo, and it's probably in my recycle bin here. See if we can restore it. And let's see, by date. Okay, I don't know if you guys knew this, but this is a good way to restore your files. I'm going to restore that. Yep, that's what I was looking for. And check it out. I wanted to get a copy of the Tesla logo. The Tesla dealership is across the street from us, so I was going to do a T-shirt to welcome those guys to the neighborhood.
Seriously,
And
they set up camp across the street. Wow.
every morning when I come into work, they're unloading Teslas off the truck into the showroom over there. And so when people order their Teslas online and you come in to pick up your vehicle in Phoenix, that's where you're doing it, across the street. So I'm going to import this PDF file. I'm just going to import page 1 of the PDF file, and I'm going to hit OK. And it's going to import that page right there. Da-da-da-da. There you go. And if I go under the hood here, no pun intended, wireframe, guess what? There's your logos right here. There's the Tesla logo. And what I was going to actually use this for was embroidery. So I'm just going to copy that over there. And what I did, and one of the other neat things about Corel, is the integration the Corel program has with other third-party add-on programs. So we're going to get into that in a second, but I'm actually going to take the Tesla logo and convert it to embroidery real quick without digitizing it. So I'm using the Drawings X Pro Vector to Stitch Conversion program, which is one of our most popular products at Digital Art Solutions. And I'm just going to create a new document. And I'm going to take the Tesla logo here, and I'm going to drag that into Drawings. And we're going to convert that into a SO file. And I'm just going to make a couple little changes here. I'll show you a couple changes I'd make on that. I'd ungroup it right here. And right now, this particular software is trimming these objects through that red background. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell it to not trim. I want to float those on top. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a red outline of the same color around the boundary of this. And we're going to change that to a satin stitch. And then what we're going to do here is I'm going to leave that right there as that right there is going to be left as a satin stitch. This is a sew file. I could just send that to my embroidery machine. Maybe make that a satin stitch too. Yeah, it looks cool. And guess what? We're going to sublimate this. So we're going to take this and we're going to export it as an image file to my desktop. Remember we talked about import and export capabilities? I'm going to save this as a PNG file from the embroidery software. And I'm going to import that right directly back into CorelDRAW. This is the import function. So we talk about the strength of the Corel importing function. And there is embroidery rendering right there that I can print this, and it will look so good that you won't be able to tell it's not real embroidery. And by the way, the background is knocked out of that too. So this way, if you have it on a dark background, it's knocked out. You're not going to see a white bounding box around there. So that's one of the real strengths of the Corel program, is to be able to not only import files in just about any popular format, but also export files in any other format. Now, one of the other things that's a big deal with CorelDRAW that makes it a great program is the PDF creation capability of the program. So PDF stands for Portable Document Format. Portable document format was a technology that was created by Adobe Corporation. It's a universal file format. It does not require you to have a specific graphics program. Any file or any type of PDF viewer, many of these are freely available. They're built right directly into Windows, can open and edit and preview PDF files. So what we're going to do with this file right here is we're going to show you some of the PDF capabilities of the actual Corel program. So what I'm going to do is I'm switching gears here a little bit. I'm going over here. This is the command center. This is Smart Designer. This is our marquee product. This is the product that everyone knows Digital Art Solutions for. This is our, bread and butter, so to speak. And Smart Designer, think of Smart Designer as like the easy button for CorelDRAW. So things that are typically complex to do in CorelDRAW, Smart Designer makes them real easy. And one of the things I want to do with this is I want to actually create a virtual sample of this file right here. And I'm going to use a feature in Smart Designer called Virtual Samples. And we are going to go over here and we're going to pick a virtual sample. Now I could do fake embroidery on a Yeti if we want to do that. Let's see what that looks like. That might be kind of fun. So there you go. Now we got fake embroidery on a Yeti. That's a little weird. It can be done. It can be done. So what we're going to do is we're going to put it on something a little bit more appropriate. And so in this particular technology, what we can do is we have our own library of product blanks, so an extensive library of both photographic and vector-based product blanks. But the other thing we can do is we can add products from various suppliers. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use this Sport Tech Oxford shirt from this is from Sanmar right here. So I'm just going to create that, and then actually this one's set up as a full chest, but I'm just going to size it down, and then we'll put it in there as a pocket, right, like that. And then I'm going to add that as a proposal sheet. So I'm going to say add art, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a virtual sample of that real quick. And the virtual sample that we're going to make is right here. It says create proposal, and the Smart Designer program is going to dynamically create a proposal. This graphic right here is a bitmap graphic. If the graphic was a vector-based graphic, the Smart Designer software would list all the colors in the graphic in the proposal sheet. Right in here, it would list all the colors. Notice I put a little watermark on there. We can delete that one. Delete. And I'm going to get rid of that watermark right there. But that's your proposal sheet. And in Smart Designer, I can pick from a pretty wide variety of proposal sheets. One of the things we're really well known for is rhinestone multi-decoration, because the physical process of creating a rhinestone heat transfer with the vinyl cutter was invented by our company back in 2007. So we've been doing that now for about 11 years. So we're really well known for that. That's why you see all those rhinestone flyers in there. But what we're going to do with this next is we're going to take and create a PDF file from this. And the way we're going to do that is one of two ways. If I'm running Smart Designer, there's a button right here that says export to PDF. Okay. If I don't have Smart Designer, I'm going to go over here and go File, Publish to PDF. You notice I'm not saving to PDF. I'm publishing to PDF. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on my desktop, and we're going to go over here and we're going to name it Tesla Concept. And then we're going to go to settings. And what I'm doing right now is I'm changing my settings to factory settings. So what does that mean? In CorelDRAW, there are various presets for creating a PDF file. In the Adobe suite of products, you would use a program called Adobe Acrobat Pro. That's a tool, it's a module for the Adobe products that allows you to go in and format a PDF file. You can do some formatting in Illustrator just by going, instead of saving it as an AI file, you can save the file as a PDF file, and you have some limited formatting you can do within that function. In CorelDRAW, it's a little bit different. You got full level formatting like you would see in the Adobe Acrobat Pro. So this editing preset, all that's doing is when I go over here and click on settings, all that's doing is it's changing all these document settings based on certain preferences for that editing one. So PDF preset for editing, that means if I go to color here, it says use document color settings. Output colors as native. What that means is if there are Pantone colors in there, they're going to be output as Pantones. If there's RGB colors, they're going to be output as RGB. So we can change that if we want to, but there's really no reason to change that. We want to leave that alone. And something that's very important for folks that have a roll-in print and cut device, if we're going to take files over to a roll-in print and cut device, we always want to choose native, because what will happen if we choose like RGB or CMYK, it will rename the colors. And in the roll and print cut devices, you have a specific color that's called cut contour that tells the print cutter which part to cut. And if we switch that over to RGB or CMYK, it names it with the formula as opposed to the cut contour color, so you can't print cut. So PDF files for roll and print and cut is great, but you just want to make sure you keep your colors as native. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down here to document, and there's my name right there, Craig Mertens, and I'm going to put copyright 2017, and the reason I'm going to, or 18, and the reason I'm going to do that is that actually stamps that file with the copyright, which is legally binding. So if I have to go to court because somebody decides they want to take my logo, now I don't own this logo because I don't own Tesla, so I'm not Elon Musk. But if I created my own original artwork here, that would protect me if I ever had to go after that client and threaten them with legal action because they stole my graphic. That's stamped into the graphic along with the date, the time, and my name. So that's a really important thing. Under objects, what I'm going to do is if I want to compress this file, I have to make it a smaller file size. I have basically two types of compression. Okay, I have compression number one is LZW, and then we also have JPEG and ZIP and JP2 compression, but the two that most people are going to be LZW compression or JPEG compression. The compression that I like is JPEG, and the reason I like the JPEG compression is I can get a really good balance between image quality and file size. I can really snug these files down pretty small. The disadvantage of JPEG compression, it's what's called a lossless compression or lossy compression, which means it does lose a little bit of image quality every time you open it and close it. But we're not going to open and close this file in CorelDRAW. All we're going to do is we're interested in doing is just kind of smushing the file size down a little bit. So I'm going to come down here and we're going to change this to the magic number, which is 180. That's the perfect balance between file size and image quality. Now, another thing that I typically recommend is under bitmap downsampling. We'll downsample any bitmaps in the graphics down to 200. It still looks great on the screen. It still prints nice, but it also is going to give us a smaller file size. Render complex fills as bitmaps is important if you have specific types of text effects and graphical effects like gradients and things of that nature. That'll also reduce my file size. What I'm doing in this objects area is I'm just kind of getting my file size trimmed down. Compressed text in line art, we always want that selected. Embed fonts and documents. Generally speaking, we want to embed the fonts. If the font can't be embedded, CorelDRAW will turn it into curves, so it's not editable. You could just export text as curves if you wanted to. It's up to you. I usually embed the fonts. And then where it says embed base 14 fonts, nope, don't need that. That's just a standard set of fonts that embeds to every document, and that just increases your file size. Under prepress, I'm not going to change anything in here, but here's a biggie, security, okay? Security. I can put a permission password or an open password. So let's say I didn't trust the person on the other end. I could put a password in here so they could not open that graphics file in Adobe Illustrator or CorelDRAW. If you have a powerful program for dealing with PDF files like Illustrator or CorelDRAW, they can open this file up and they could get to my original artwork. It's not as big of a deal with this particular file because it's just a photographic image, but it's a huge big deal if you have vector artwork, because here's the thing about PDF files. They preserve both the vector content in the artwork and the photographs perfectly. And so I'll actually show you that in a second because it's pretty wild what's going to happen here. So I'm not going to put a password on this. And then under issues, there's certain issues that it'll tag us as it contains small fonts, and we know that because you can see the fonts there. So I'm just going to go ahead and save this PDF file real quick. We'll hit save, and it's going to pop that up on my desktop when it's all done right here. And it's not going to be a particularly large file. This file is going to probably be in the range of under a megabyte, I imagine. Let's see, I'm going to hover my mouse over here, and it's 1.91 megabytes. Almost all that file size is from the high resolution embroidery rendering. That's where the file size is coming from. You'll also notice that I have previews for all these files here. Like I have previews for my PDF files and my PNGs and all my file formats. That's not normal in Windows. The reason that those previews are showing up is because I'm running the Smart Designer program, and the Smart Designer program installs previews for common graphics formats so that you can see a thumbnail without opening the file. And so that's one of the things that we do is we add preview extensions for, like, here's a PNG file, here's a AI file, PDF file. These are all different formats that we have. So I'm going to go ahead and take this, and you guys that are on the live webcast, you can look on your control panel. It says handouts, and I'm going to drag and drop this into handouts real quick, and then you can download that file. Take a look at it. So the way that we would normally encourage clients to get these kind of finished graphics to their customers is typically not via a email attachment, and here's why. If we do an email attachment, what is going to happen is if they have a stingy spam filter on their other end, it's going to pick off that file. I had emailed some files over to the good folks at Meredith over at Conde Systems, and their email, I think it was an Excel file, and I believe your server quarantined me, and so she didn't get that file. So what I did is I set up a link and had her download it. So I'm going to show you another methodology that we recommend for getting files for over to clients, and it's something that it's called Hightail Spaces, and we have a paid account, but you can also get a free account too. Here, I'll just go over to hightail.com here. And it's an absolutely remarkable technology. I love this technology. And there's a variety of ways that you can get involved in it. One is free. So it says light, that's a free account. You get file size, you can send files up to 250 megabytes. Files expire automatically in 7 days, and then you have a storage space of 2 gigabytes. So you can do a file that times out. If you put a file on, if you set up a Hightail space, it's not going to delete it after 7 days. It's just you have the ability to delete it after 7 days. And then it gives you some file previews of common file formats. What we use is the actual Pro account. It's $12 a month. Crazy. And we have a huge amount of storage. We can send up to 25 gig files. I can set files any kind of like configuration as far as like it's supposed to time out in a week or a day or a month, or it can only be downloaded once or twice or however many times I want to do that. So here's why we do Hightail Spaces, for this reason. Because this is my Hightail Spaces account. I can create a new space, and I'll call this space Tesla. And I'll create the space, and then what I'll do is I'll simply drag and drop the Tesla concept into that space. Hightail Spaces will generate a preview. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a nice little email to the client saying, hey, listen, we're a local embroidery company. We'd love to do your work. Here's what we do. I would email this link right here. I'll chat that link over to you guys so you can see how that works. And they don't have to have an email attachment. So PDF technology is an absolutely amazing piece of technology for getting ideas in front of customers. And what's pretty cool about this with Hightail Spaces, not only do you get a preview, they can comment on this. I can set it up for art approval, so it sets up an approval process and creates a record of the approval. It's absolutely brilliant. Now, what I'm going to do here next is, we'll see if this works. I'm going to try to re-import that PDF file back into CorelDRAW. Tesla right there, that's my Tesla concept. I'll click on import. Okay, guys, this is why you password protect your PDF files. You guys see that? That's all vector artwork. So that's why you password protect them, because if you don't, people that aren't necessarily trustworthy on the other end can get to your artwork, and you don't want them to be able to do that. That would be that's a very technical term. It's called a bummer. So, and you just don't ever want to be in that position with the client when you're having to accuse them of taking your artwork. So just, one of my dad said, don't leave the cash on the counter. It's a little bit too tempting. So what we're going to do is I'm going to walk you guys through like a typical workflow, and we're actually going to create a multi-decoration design. I'm going to walk you guys through a typical workflow in CorelDRAW, and I'm actually going to do some super duper complicated stuff that would be hard for me, having been teaching CorelDRAW for over 20 years, which would be extremely difficult and challenging for me to do, even with my knowledge and experience in CorelDRAW. I'm going to explain to you how we're automating and simplifying this process along the way, so you can see some of the advantages of having third-party add-on software. That's one of the biggest reasons for having CorelDRAW. Third-party add-on software, programs that are designed to work with CorelDRAW. You've already seen two of those programs. One is the Smart Designer program, one is the Drawings program. You're also going to see a program that's called Rhinestone Designer. That's another digital art solutions program that's designed to integrate a workflow for rhinestone multi-decoration, meaning rhinestone design, pattern creation and output, as well as for heat press vinyl functionality. So this is a really typical workflow. So what I'm going to do, first thing I'm going to do is in Smart Designer, I'm going to go to the command center over here, and I'm going to say select template. Now here's the scoop. We've been doing templates for 23 years. So we've got thousands and thousands and thousands of design templates, over 12,000 design templates. They are arranged in collections. So a template can be a wide variety of things. So I'll show you like some typical templates. These are templates from our campus apparel marketing system. These are templates that we have a little button here. It says check for updates. Clients that subscribe to campus apparel, every month we come out with new sales flyers and new templates. They are automatically downloaded to your computer, as well as a PDF image piece, which is like a catalog. That's a PDF, secured PDF catalog. And over the course of a year, and we've been doing this since 2013, we have a huge number of design templates. So here's some of the stuff we did in 2017. Here's some band templates. Here's small business graphics that we did. Here's some camp designs. Some championship designs that we did, dance and cheer, always popular, church designs, clubs. This is a really good one because you got that arrow thing that's real popular right now, but here's all your class shirt designs here. Here's some clubs that we're doing. Here's where we got the Vicksburg from. Events, so different events that are happening, family reunions, popular thing, fashion, first responders, fire and police, fitness clubs, fitness themes, holidays. So this is a body of work from a year from Campus Apparel. These are very high-end graphics. These are going to be the same kind of graphics that you're going to see in a retail environment. This is not your, for lack of a better word, art by the pound. These are graphics that are produced by our very talented team of freelance graphic designers that we work with. And the reason I say freelance is we do this externally because the people that are doing these graphics are very expensive for us to have on staff. They're folks that are like drawing race cars for NASCAR. And so what I can do is I can hire those people that are very talented people to do an ongoing contract work with us. And so we get a real high-end graphic without me having to pay a substantial amount of salary to have that person on staff full-time. And they wouldn't be interested in being here full-time anyways because they would get bored too quick. So here's some spring break graphics, student government, some fun Western graphics. So these are templates. This is what a template looks like. We just did if you're a Campus Apparel subscriber, you want to check your campus, your check for updates because we just came out with the new ones for March. So we did a whole section of clubs. We did a whole section of new mascot section. And we did the ones that everybody loves are these teacher ones that we did. These are great. So those are templates. So some of the other things that can be a template can also be a multi-decoration design for say rhinestone multi-decoration. So if I come over here and go to pattern packs, these are designs where they actually have rhinestones incorporated into templates with heat press vinyl or even sublimation. We did a class on that, the last class, on how you can combine stones and sublimation. Very easy thing to do. Another type of template is monograms. We know a lot about monograms. We taught another class on that. We have 3,200 monogram templates that are already pre-built. I don't have to know any keyboard shortcuts. It's just a feature. We click on the template, we highlight the text, we change the text, we're done. There's no requirement for having any kind of keyboard shortcuts or anything, and make it super duper easy. What I'm interested in doing is what's called a knockout design. And a knockout design works like this. So I'm going to go down to one of our power packs, and I'm going to go down to Power Pack 2, and I'm going to go to Knockouts, and a knockout design that clip art actually knocks through the text in the graphic. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to double click on that design. The template property editor is going to open up, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here and where it says cheer, I'm going to change that to the word central. You guys see what I'm doing? That bow is power clipped. So if we go over here to the view button right here, you can see you can't really see anything. There's no vector properties for that because it's power clipped in there. Under bulldogs, I'm just going to change that to cheer. And I'm not going to, I don't even care about like uppercase or lowercase because there's a little button in Smart Designer. It says T for title case. Okay. So we're going to do that. Now, next thing we're going to do is we are going to extract the bow from the design. We're going to say extract, and we're going to reposition the bow. And what I want to do with the bow is make it a little bit bigger and put it over a part of the graphic where it's going to be fairly prominent, where you can actually see it. That would be actually a really good point for it, place for it. We could go over here and we can move it up a little bit too. There's that. Move it up. I think right there is going to be perfect. So do you see how it's power clipped it right in there again? So we still have that same problem where it's not going to be, conducive to vinyl cutting. But here's what we're going to do. We're going to make that conducive to vinyl cutting. And I tried doing this on the webcast last week, and I was trying to remember how to do that in CorelDRAW. I forgot. I had to go back and watch my own video on how to do it in CorelDRAW. It's such a complicated process to do that. It even baffled me, and I've been teaching CorelDRAW for over 20 years. So what we're going to do is we're going to let the Rhinestone Designer software automate that. So I'm going to go over here to a function in our Rhinestone Designer software, same kind of thing. Like you have a Docker over here, just like Smart Designer, and I'm going to go to the knockout function, and I'm going to have it knock this through, but I'm going to create a gap in between these two objects. I'm going to create a gap of 0.05 in there. And we are going to have it knock that out for us. So I'm just going to click on this, and we're going to hit apply, and it's going to go through and do that process. And it's going to set it up all for vinyl. So if we go to wireframe view now, that's an inlay. So a couple things we could do. Number one, we could sublimate the central and just make that glitter vinyl. That would be awesome to do that. We could make this right here glitter, and I'm going to do that real quick. I'm going to put a glitter vinyl fill in here, and this is a feature of Rhinestone Designer. We're going to make that glitter vinyl fill. We're going to make that neon pink, and then we're going to use a solid thermoflex color here. That's a very popular heat press vinyl that can be cut out on a vinyl cutter. And so we're going to kind of stick with the same color scheme here. We're going to do sapphire blue. There's that. But we're going to call an audible on the cheer. What I want to do on the cheer, I want to make this rhinestones. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on cheer right here, and I'm going to go over here to rhinestone fonts. And the Rhinestone Designer software has up to 167 different rhinestone fonts, depending upon what package the customer chooses. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and choose a font called Sport Single. And the reason I'm picking that one is because it's the same font as the big font right there. And I'm going to apply a size to that. I'm going to say apply size. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make that a color. We're going to make that clear crystal. So there's all my rhinestone colors. And then I'm going to align this. I'm going to hit C to center align it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say 2 stones. And we're going to do is we're going to italicize that. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a little bit of an arc. See where it says envelopes right here? I'm going to go ahead and give it just a little bit of a top arc or bottom arc up to me. Maybe just a little, kick it out just a little bit. You see that? that has made those circles into ovals. There's a little button right here. It says convert to rhinestone circles. So that's our design. So I'm going to go over here and do a save. And we'll call this central cheer. So CorelDRAW is what's allowing me to do all this third-party add-on software here. All this stuff that you're seeing, I'm not touching any CorelDRAW tools other than like the zoom and the pick tool. Our third-party add-on technology is what's allowing us to do this so efficiently. And that's one of the most, in my opinion, one of the most important things about CorelDRAW is the ability to do that. And what we're going to do is we're going to take this the rest of the way. I'm going to go over here and we're going to click on Output, and I'm going to hit Apply. And this is going to create a color separation for me. So this is my cut file. If I was doing sublimation, I would say create print page, and any part that wasn't marked as vinyl would be set up as a print page. So here's your first color of vinyl. It tells you what kind of vinyl it is. It's been rotated. It's saving our material on our weed border. Right here is your glitter vinyl layer. Here is your rhinestone stencil. We would cut that out with our vinyl cutter using a material called Wonderflock. And then we would weed out the excess material that would create a stencil. We would put that stencil on a backer board. We'd flood that with stones. It'll flood in about 10 seconds, and we'll lift it off a transfer paper, and that's our transfer. These are no longer circles anymore. These are an overcut object because I had this little button right here for add overcut selected. What it's going to do, it's going to drop that cutter blade right here. It's going to come around, and it's going to go past this point. So it's just going to cut this white section twice. And the reason we're doing that is so that we don't have a little, quote, hanging chad that's connecting there. So when we go to weed, those dots pull up. We don't want those to pull up. If we double cut, we spin the blade twice, it's going to cut through the liner sheet of the material or create a corkscrew effect. And if we do a corkscrew effect, the stones aren't going to want to go in. So this is the file that we would take over to the cutter. And a couple different ways we'd get that over to the cutter. Way number one is if you were running like a Cameo, you could just say export as SVG file. The way I would do it is I just click on this little button here, and that would launch our Stone Cut software, which is our cutting software, which is the other module for vinyl cutting, and then we would send that to our cutter. And that can be any cutter. It doesn't matter what cutter you have. We can drive all the cutters. So that's a typical workflow. So let's take this in another direction. Let's go back to that kind of that proofing concept again. And we'll do that, and we'll show you what that looks like. So here's the cutting piece right here. It's going to just open up the cutting software and transfer the file over. I'd say design, break group. Let's say we just want to do a whole sheet of these cheers because we want to make a whole bunch of transfers at once. I'd click on the little cutting icon. I would pick my Wonderflock material. I would tell it what my speed and pressure. It's already going to be a preset, so I don't have to do that. So it'll automatically put my speed and pressure in there. I'll hit preview. I'll tell it how many I want to do. Maybe we want to do 6 of these. I don't want to fill my working area. I don't need 764 of them. Okay, so we'll just do a total of 6. And then what I'll do is if I want to, I can optimize my material, see if I can save on a little bit of material. There we go. And this is my stencil. So I can make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 transfers all at once if I choose to. That's the cutting process. So let's come back over here. Let's go back to our original design and let's create a virtual sample. So the way I'm going to create a virtual sample is we're going to do it this way. A little function here, it says proofing. And I'm going to add a simulation so it looks like real stones. I'm going to add a sparkle effect to it, and I'm going to soften that sparkle so it's a little bit softer look. So we're going to create a little simulation here. Bada boom, bada bing, there you go. And then we're going to go ahead and put that on a virtual sample. And so I'm going to clear this product right here. And we're going to go over here and go to product blanks, and I'm going to pick in my SAMR folder, I'm going to pick this one right here, and we're just going to click on that one, and it's going to mock that design up on that t-shirt blank right there, and we can make it a little bigger if we want to. And then what we're going to do is we're going to transfer that over to our proposal sheet real quick. So any product that I can find online, I can do this with. All I have to be able to do is go online and right click on the image and say save image, copy it into CorelDRAW, and then we can add it into the proposal blanks feature. And then we'll just say create proposal here. And we're going to make our little flyer. And what we've got here, I'm going to take my watermark out of there again so you can see what's going on. It's made the stones look like stones. So these are, and you can sublimate that as well, and they look great. So here's our proposal sheet. This is what we're going to get over to the client. Here's the different stones and vinyls that are being used in here. Here's my stone count. Here's my vinyl count right here. And then again, we would just publish that as a PDF file. That's exactly how we would do it. So this whole process, when we had our art department at Desert Sportswear, before we started this company, we had 21 full-time graphic designers. 6 of them were doing this. When our sales team would go in and meet with a big national company like, say, JCPenney Corporation in Dallas or the U.S. Olympic Committee in Colorado Springs, our sales team would go in with the professional proof, because here's the scoop, and David can back me on this one. Hey guys, nobody cares what equipment you have. The only person that cares what equipment you have is you. Because you're the one that paid for it. What the customer cares about is what comes out the other side. They care about the graphic and the imprint. That's the important thing. People that can produce graphics more efficiently and quicker and at a higher level of quality, guess what? They can write their own ticket, because people are going to be engaged in the graphical process. They're going to look at the graphic and go, man, that looks awesome. I'd sure like to own one of those. Now all of a sudden, we're not really talking about price anymore. What we're talking about is how many and what we're going to put it on. And so the concept here is, what we did is we made it possible for people that are non-graphic designers to take this very powerful program called CorelDRAW, which people can just get lost in it, and just dumb it down, make it simple for people, and automate all the production processes. That's what we've been doing for the last 23 years of our business. So we wouldn't have to have 6 people doing this now if we were to start up a business again. I would probably just do it myself. I wouldn't even need an artist to do this, because it's just fast and simple and efficient. So that's the whole process. Now I'll show you a couple other things in CorelDRAW that are as it pertains to Smart Designer that are kind of a big deal. One of the things that people always ask about is, man, how do you do all these cool text effects? And I'll show you how we do all these cool text effects. You ready? So we're going to type in the word mobile, and we're just going to make that a collegiate font. And I'm going to go over here and I'm going to center justify that. And we're going to make it a fun color. So we'll come down here and make it maybe a Mardi Gras color. I know it's over, but it'd be always kind of fun. So a little purple action. I think your colors are different from Mardi Gras though. And then what we're going to do is, I don't have to learn how to arc anything. All I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Effects. I'm going to go to Envelopes and Arcs. This is Smart Designer. I just click on that arc and make an arc out of it. Just do it for me automatically. Or if I don't want to do it that way, what I can do is I can do it interactively using live enveloping, which is the way I'm doing it. So we're just going to do a little live envelope and do a flat top. Then what we're going to do is we're going to use a little feature in Smart Designer called Special Effects. And we're going to cruise down here and go Special Effects. And we're going to pick a nice kind of a fun effect here. We'll just do a little collegiate effect here. And we're just going to click on that. There's my effect. And then we're going to add a little pattern fill to this. So what I'm going to do here next is I'm going to add a quick fill. So I'm going to click on quick fills. And we're going to shift out of purple. We're going to make this green now. And then we're going to put a crazy zebra pattern in there. Ta-da-ta-da. Okay, here's the scoop. Remember, power clips don't have vector properties, so they can't be cut to a vinyl cutter, okay? Or do they? Smart Designer is going to turn that into vectors. There's a little button. Made that a vector artwork now. So now you've got power clips that are vectors. So that's a real live piece right there. That's how we do it. Now, as far as if I want to recolor that and we want to go totally crazy, I always have the option to go into my color management feature and recolor it. So I might want to recolor it based on a specific color chart. So we have color charts that we can print out and we can actually sublimate. So we can go to the chart and say, that's the color I want. Let's color that black area. Let's color that green, our black area, to gold. And so I'm going to go over here and say color manipulation. And I'm going to say change colors in the document. And I'm going to say to Pantone if I want to convert it to Pantone colors. I'm going to say swap colors. I'm going to swap the black with gold. And if I know the color number, I can just type the color number in. So I'm going to do 123 gold. There's that. And I want to use a different color green. So we're going to swap that green out with a more of a Kelly green. Let's see what we got here. That's a good one right there. And voila, there we go. So one last thing, you ready? Let's add a weathered overlay to that. So let's go over here and add an overlay of that so it looks like it's been washed about 1,000 times. So I'm just going to go to the overlays docker, and we're just going to click on an overlay, and there you go, voila. And you can just print that, done. We even have overlays for vinyl cutting. So recapping, CorelDRAW. If you want to have professional results, you need a professional graphics program. You're simply put, you're not going to be able to get this far graphically with a consumer level program. You can do a lot of these same things that we did here today in Adobe Illustrator and CorelDRAW by itself, but you'd have to learn all the production steps in order to do that. That text effect and that arcing and enveloping, that arcing was about 3 steps that you'd have to know. That layered text effect is about 7 or 8 steps. That the power clipping of the zebra pattern, that would be 2 steps that we'd have to learn. Then we'd have to go in and recolor it manually in CorelDRAW, and then we'd have to figure out how to do a weathered overlay. For us, it's just click, 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 done. That's the idea. So PDF technology, brilliant in CorelDRAW. Color management, do a great job with color management. Import and export capability, awesome. But probably the biggest advantage of CorelDRAW, in my opinion, is the fact that you have access to this wonderful third-party add-on software that automates this whole process. That's a huge, huge big deal because you don't have to learn all those complex processes. You get to go from kindergarten to middle school immediately. If you're already in middle school, you get to go to college immediately. And so what you're doing is you're arming yourself with all these tools that help you to make graphics more productive. And it was interesting. I was talking to a client today, and she was saying, well, all the stuff we do is really simple. And I go, well, the reason, and they had, she had an Oki data printer and sublimation and a laser engraver. And she goes, well, why do you do all the simple? Well, we don't really know how to do the complicated stuff. It was kind of what we got around to. But we were talking about what I kind of got under her skin a little bit. And I told her that. I said, hey, listen, you're vulnerable to online competition. If you don't have a higher end of graphics capability, you're vulnerable to online competition because that person, you've commoditized it. You just have simple basic graphics that anybody can do. When you have things that are more dynamic and interesting, people fall in love with the graphic first, and then they're just deciding what to put it on. And I got through to her. I think she's going to become a customer. She's one of your customers too, David.
Gotcha.
So we'll know on Tuesday. So hopefully she's on the webcast. Although I think they were taking the day off at noon here today. So this is probably, in my opinion, one of the biggest reasons that Corel is so well suited to our industry is this proliferation of add-on software out there that allows people to be more productive. And we've been doing that longer than anybody. David, anything else you would like to add?
Probably we've gone too long, but well, what I meant was I don't want to make it any longer. You've done a great job, Craig, and you're always fond of information about how to get value out of Corel. And so ultimately, Corel is our Swiss Army knife. It's the tool that will allow you to maximize the benefits from your decorating. But I very much enjoyed learning from you, Craig.
Appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, and we have quite a few questions, and I'll go ahead and answer all the questions.